The sequel to 1978's Halloween had more pressure on it than I think most of us will ever really know. I mean, John Carpenter has said numerous times he wanted nothing to do with doing a sequel. He wanted nothing to do with another story about Michael Myers. Instead, he preferred that Halloween become sort of a horror anthology series, kind of like what we wound up with Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. He also didn't care to pull back the curtain on Michael Myers. You know, his motives, his past. He didn't want people knowing that because it's a lot scarier when you just don't know. But Halloween, when it came out in 78, it set the genre on fire, inspiring copycat after copycat. I mean, the storied, iconic Friday the 13th series was a direct ripoff, according to the people that made the movie, of Halloween. And that meant we were destined for a follow-up to what happened in Haddonfield. And that follow-up is what lands at number 6 on the countdown with 1981's Halloween 2. Whimsical tones of Mr. Sandman sing us into this new Haddonfield adventure and continuation off of exactly where we left off that night in 1978. We see Laurie telling the kids to go next door and get the cops. Tell the neighbors to get the cops over right away. For the life of me, I just don't know why she just didn't go with them instead of sitting in that house with a killer 15 feet away from her. But we do get that terrifying scene of Michael sitting up and looking over towards Laurie. I mean, it's such a simple movement, but man, they made that scary, and it was copied so many times in so many different ways, so many different walks of life. The Undertaker, for example, made a living off of that move. We get the shots fired by Loomis, we get the big second story fall, but we get to see this time the doctor go to investigate where Michael fell when he realizes Michael's not laying there anymore. And he puts his hand in the area where the body fell, and there is a ton of blood all over that lawn. Neighbor comes over, asks Dr. Loomis if this is a prank, says he's been trick-or-treated to death, and Loomis drops the "you don't know what death is" line. A little corny, but he delivered it great because it's Donald Pleasance. Music hits, and we're off and running. Now, I love that they pick up from the moment of the last film. And it's all basically, these two movies are just all one really long night for these characters. But there are some big differences between the first one and the second one. So all of it happening back to back, it's interesting, a little confusing given the tone of the two films, but I'm happy with it nonetheless. I'm glad to be back in Haddonfield for this one. So there's a scene where Mrs. Elrod is making Mr. Elrod a sandwich, and Michael sneaks into the back door. We see him pop into the kitchen, grab the knife, and pop out. And that scene is still the reason, all these decades later, that I check the locks in my house probably 3 or 4 times before I go to bed. A lot of that's because I have kids I have to look after. A lot of it's just because I still believe in the boogeyman. And those old folks, I don't know that they'll ever know how lucky that they really were. Now, you can't say the same thing for the next door neighbor. There is a pretty girl next door. Here's Mrs. Elrod scream, checks on her. How she doesn't see Michael standing there in the backyard, I don't understand. But he makes his way inside as she's on the phone with her friend. Her friend's kind of downloading all the information to her about all the murders that happened just a few blocks away. Michael slips in the front door, pops out at this girl, kills her, game over. Now, this is one of the kills that told me the tone of this movie was going to be different. We saw a lot more blood than we usually see, and it felt like a kill you would see in a Jason movie. It felt like something else. And we'll get more into that later. Did you guys know that the last Starfighter was a fucking EMT in Haddonfield? I had no idea. But I'm damn happy to see him here. And I suspect that this dude, based off the vibes that he and Laurie, or even incapacitated Laurie, are sort of throwing at each other here, I got a pretty good feeling he's either the father of Jamie Lloyd or John Tate. But I just can't prove that. And Maury Povich wasn't a thing back then, so I guess it's something we're never going to know. But even after almost being killed, Laurie Strode looks amazing here. She's getting taken to Haddonfield Memorial Hospital to get patched up by Dr. Mixter, who is absolutely shit-faced when he shows up to deal with her. Really, really great start to the film. And, you know, proof again, Jamie Lee Curtis is a forever fox. She's just outstanding. Loomis, meanwhile, he's riding shotgun with Sheriff Brackett looking for Michael, and he does see a guy wearing a similar mask, but this dude is carrying a bag of candy, we presume. Maybe there's a butcher knife in it. Loomis loses his shit. The distraction leads this poor guy wearing this mask into an accident where a cop car pins him into a van and it explodes, and this dude is basically incinerated right there on the spot. Sadly, we later learned that this is Ben Tramer, the guy that Laurie was hot to trot for. And then right after that, Brackett winds up learning about his daughter being one of the victims. And it's a sad scene because Charles Cyphers is a really, really good character in the first one and the second one. And then, of course, he went on to be in Halloween Kills, where he got his line in about it's Halloween, we all deserve one good scare. But he has a hard time with Annie's death. And that's the last time we see him in this film because he's got to figure out how he's going to go explain it to his wife. And now I got to know, does Michael really find out that Laurie is at Haddonfield Memorial Hospital because of a news broadcast playing on this kid's awesome boombox that he's carrying on his shoulder when he bumps into Michael in Town Square? I mean, that's just some really, really bad luck for everybody at the hospital that night. And I really got a kick out of the fact that he's just walking through Haddonfield's busy streets because there's still a lot of people out on the streets that night. And granted, it's Halloween, everybody's dressed up. I just got a kick out of that. I thought that was really interesting. So we meet Karen, who is really irked about the fact that the Halloween party that her and her friend just came from was super lame and that she's now going to be late for her shift at Haddonfield Memorial Hospital. She's a nurse there, apparently. And holy hell, I'm watching this scene, and is the girl with her Wendy from prom night? That's Wendy from prom night that she's walking with. And I hated that girl. Here in this movie, though, she's got a bit part. We don't see her again after this brief scene. So I was kind of bummed that we weren't going to get a chance to watch her die on film again because she was that big of a bitch in Prom Night 1980. If this film gives us nothing else, it gives us Bud. And Bud, in my opinion, is a national treasure. Foul-mouthed heathen who isn't really moved by the murders. I mean, he knows what's going on around him. I mean, he's an EMT, for Christ's sakes. He's been hauling bodies all night. But he's hyper-focused on Karen getting to work and organizing some alone time for the two of them later on. I really dug this character. I really did. And I know he's designed to be the foul-mouthed prick of the whole crew. But I thought Bud was really entertaining in the brief amount of time we got to spend with Bud. Now, Michael winds up making his way onto the hospital property because the security guard there is got his feet up and I think he's reading the funny pages. I don't know what he's looking at, but he's not looking at the security monitors when Michael just walks across the front lawn. And I got to tell you, Michael Myers is a smart psychopath. He does a really good job. I mean, he kills the phone lines to the whole hospital. And not only that, but we find out later in the film when one of the nurses is supposed to go get help from the sheriff's department, every tire in that parking lot has been slashed. He has no intentions of letting this chick get away from him again. Same kind of determination I try to teach my son. Less stabby vibes, though. But still, if you got a goal, chase that goal. Now, the therapy tub is where I was convinced that this franchise was headed towards certified slasher route. Karen gets naked and meets Bud there for some of that on-the-clock sex before Michael shows up and cock-blocks both of them. He turns the temperature of the therapy tub up way too high. Karen's not happy. Bud gets out because he's got to keep Karen happy. So Bud's happy, and then Bud dies. Rest in peace, Bud. We love you, buddy. Karen is fooled because Michael comes back and sorts of puts his hand on her shoulder, so Karen's sucking on Michael's finger. Then he eventually decides, after he's getting tired of being bit by this woman, he's going to drown her in scalding hot water. So we've checked the nudity box, right? And then we have a gross out kill because it's pretty gnarly to see what she looks like after she's been drowned in this boiling hot tub. Very different from the first film. And again, different doesn't mean bad, but it's way it's a far cry from the slow, methodical stalking that we got and the muted kills. And we're firmly in slasher territory right now. Now, Laurie spends most of this film in a hospital bed, and this makes sense, but it can make the movie feel slow at times. That scene, though, when Laurie is sort of hazy and out of it, and she's walking down the hallway looking for somebody, and then that nurse pops up to call her name out, and then Laurie turns around, Michael pops up behind the nurse and lifts her in the air with a scalpel in her back. That is an iconic scene in a movie full of iconic scenes, and it's scary as hell. And when you see it as a kid, it just sort of it burns itself into your psyche. It's not something you easily forget. And the hospital chase is really good too. That's another one. Now, Michael feels different from 1 to 2. He feels a little bit more robotic in his movements in this one, but that's pretty damn scary because, like the first one, though, he just keeps moving forward, and the music really ramps up the chase. It's like a theme that's just kind of pecks at you. And Laurie is so out of it. She's so impaired by the drugs that they had her on. You feel like, oh my God, at any moment, because we don't know what's going to happen in 2. This is all still really new to us. We have no idea that Laurie is going to make it through. Literally anything can happen. Now, I'm not a fan of Michael using a scalpel. I think it looks kind of stupid. Makes sense given the setting. Wasn't my favorite part. I didn't like that. I think Michael with a butcher knife, that feels just about right. Jason's got the machete. Freddy's got the butter knives. Michael's got a butcher knife. The world is, and Chucky uses everything. That's what we do. Ghostface hunting knife, you get the picture. Just as soon as Loomis finds out that Laurie is Michael's sister from way back in the day, then he knows exactly where Michael's going to eventually be, and that leads us to the fiery climax we arrive at. And I did love Laurie's marksmanship at the end of this one too. Strong ending they gave us to a much better than average sequel. So Halloween 2 in 1981, what does this movie kill? What do they get right? And the first thing that comes to mind when I think about this movie is Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis. Terrific in every scene. I mean, even when they go through all that goofy druid shit, when they get to the school and the words written on the board and there's blood on the desk and there's a knife through a picture, and he makes all of that work. You believe everything he's saying. And in all of these movies that he's in involving Michael Myers, even though it's so absurd from a physical standpoint, every time he shows up, you get a sense that the characters that are in trouble, in jeopardy, are gonna somehow be okay. At least 1 or 2 of them. You instantly feel better about their chances because Dr. Loomis is there. I mean, I've said it before in another video, he is the Van Helsing to Michael Myers. That is what this guy is. And he's one of my favorite characters of all time. Even Crazy Loomis in Part 5, one of my favorite characters of all time. Not just in horror, movies in general. Donald Pleasance was amazing. Great cast. Hospital staff was memorable. Everybody had a very distinct role. The prude that was offended by Bud cussing, the promiscuous nurse that wound up in the therapy tub with him. Everybody had a good role. Everybody was memorable, and it gave Michael a whole host of people to sort of work his way through until he got to Laurie. The eye candy was definitely eye candy, and the EMTs, Bud and Jimmy, they're just fun-loving guys working a gig and chasing pretty girls. Jamie Lee Curtis didn't have as much to do in this film as she did in the first one, but she's stunning here. And when she was in peril, like when she was in legitimate trouble, she proved why she's the ultimate final girl. I mean, not only did you feel her fear when Michael was chasing her, like that chase scene in the hospital was really damn good, but when it comes time for her to defend herself, I mean, she defends herself. Laurie Strode, just amazing. Best final girl of all time. Now, I like slasher films, so I really did not mind the elevated body count of this one. And the added gore of some of those deaths, it was fine. I didn't have an issue with it. Honestly, I would have had no problem keeping things as they were, if they followed the blueprint of the first film. But that was probably never going to happen with the success of Friday the 13th and the way things were going in the genre. Still, this felt fun when you consider the fact that it all happened in one night. And the contrast of the two films, I dug what they did here. I thought they had some good ideas. I know they wanted to go with an anthology. John Carpenter did not want this, and he hated the sister twist. I understand that. But they turned out a really nice sequel here, and it's something that you can put on any day in October. Halloween, obviously, is a great night to watch it, but anytime in October you put this on, you're going to be entertained for an hour and a half, guaranteed. As far as what killed this movie, I don't really have a lot of gripes, except the mask. The mask is another thing we've talked about a lot. And we're going to keep talking about it because the mask is something that you have to get right. And they got it wrong here, kind of. It's the original mask from the first movie, but I think it was kept in a shoebox of a heavy smoker, got discolored, it got a little bit warped. And then the guy playing Michael this time around maybe had a bit of a bigger head, so it looks a little bit more stretched. It kind of feels like Hobo Mike a few decades before we actually get Hobo Mike and Zombies Halloween 2. But again, this franchise has been snake bit when it comes to masks. This is just a minor gripe because this Michael Myers is really scary in this movie. Kind of slow at times, this movie in general. Like I said, with Laurie being in the hospital bed as long as she was, it flowed a little funny from time to time. You just waited for them to get to the good stuff. But all in all, like I said, minor gripes. This is a stellar horror movie. So this movie is absolutely worthy of being ranked 6th in our countdown here. 7.5 out of 10 is what I would score it. I think this is a really strong follow-up to a classic film, and it really further cements that Michael Myers is a horror icon. And, you know, we went away from him in 3, which we'll talk about, and we got back to him in 4, which we'll talk about that one as well. But here, for this movie, Halloween 2 in 1981, I really enjoyed it. And that's just my opinion. I'm open to yours. I'd love to talk to you about it. I've got a few people that do hit me up regarding these horror movies, and it's always fun conversation. I think anytime you can get together and talk about opinions and share ideas and suggestions, or, hey, did you see this? And it's very eye-opening. I don't think there's enough of that anymore, and, you know, I like that sort of thing. So if you share this opinion or if you have a different opinion, feel free to let me know. I'd like you to subscribe to the channel if you can think about it. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of this sequel. But until next time, this is Aging Gracefully. I am Matthew Essex. I appreciate you guys hanging out, and I will see you on the other side.